Good day, order learners. Today is another day of learning. I am glad to be part of your journey as you learn our new lesson. Let's talk about give expanded definition of words. I am your teacher here, teacher Alogy and Primi Harris.
And I am teacher Lizelle L. Gaslam. Despite the situation brought by this pandemic, together we will cope and learn the most essential competencies English 10 that discusses about give expanded definition of words. Our determination to learn in this lesson, these are the following adjectives. First, differentiate between technical and operational definition. Second, explain or describe phenomena using expanded definition. And the third is write the technical and operational definition of the word.
Okay, by this time, let us measure how for you to know about this topic by answering the following question. Now let's begin. I will read each item carefully and please answer the question that follow by writing a letter of the correct answer on separate answer sheet. Question number 1. What technique of expanding a definition explains the origin of the word itself? A. Etymology. B. History. C. Cause and effect. Or D. Classification. And the answer is letter A. Etymology. Number 2. What technique of expanding a definition lists and defines the component parts? A. Principles of operation. B. Illustrations. C. Example. Or D. Description. And the answer is letter D. Description. What technique of expanding a definition shows how the topic fits into a larger category? Letter A. History. B. Contrast or negation. C. Illustration. Or letter D. Classification. And the answer is letter D. Classification. Number 4. It defines a term by explaining what the concept is not. A. Not definition. B. Negatives or negations. C. History. Or letter D. Illustration. And the answer is letter B. Negatives or negations. And number 5. It gives another definition of the term that is being defined. Letter A. Addition definition. B. Definition. C. History. Or letter D. Problem solution. And the answer is letter A. Addition definition. It's time to move forward. This time, let's study what an expanded definition of word is. Okay. Now, what is an expanded definition?
An expanded definition defines and explains a single term, concept, or object, pins down the meaning of a specific word, or defines an abstract concept, and goes deeper than a simple dictionary definition. An expanded definition is an important writing tool that you will need if you are writing for a person who is not an expert or specialist in a particular subject. An expanded definition explains a complex or unfamiliar term to make it easier to understand, which is important to effective communication. These are the techniques in expanding definition. 1. Etymology explains the origin of the word itself. For example, arbitration. Arbitration comes from the Latin word judicium, which means judgment. 2. History discusses the history of the term, its use, and controversies associated with it. For example, The use of arbitration as third-party mediation dates from 1630s. 3. Cause and effect. Discusses how the situation came about and what effects it may have. For example, an arbitration clause is considered to be ambiguous when the parties do not express clearly that in case of conflict, the method to use to settle the disagreements will be arbitration. Hence, parties are compelled to refrain from signing confusing agreements to arbitrate because the general rule is that arbitration is prompted out of the contract, and if there is not an explicit arbitration clause within the contract, it would not be an agreement to arbitrate. 4. Description. Lists and defines the term. For example, arbitration is the process of solving an argument between people by helping them to agree to an acceptable solution. It is the formal process of having an outside person chosen by both sides to a disagreement to end the disagreement. 5. Principles of operation. Discusses how something functions, including any special materials or conditions required. For example, arbitration is conducted by a trained arbiter who sets down the rules that the parties must abide by. The object of arbitration is to obtain a fair resolution of disputes by an impartial third party without unnecessary expense or delay. Parties should be free to agree on how their disputes are resolved, subject only to such safeguards are necessary for the public interest. Courts should not interfere. 6. Classification. Shows how the topic fits into a larger category. For example, arbitration is one of the alternatives to going into a formal court to settle disputes. 7. Contrast. Shows how the topic differs from other in the same class. For example, in an arbitration proceeding, no lawyers are present. The main difference between arbitration and litigation law is that the court is involved in the case of litigation as it is a lawsuit, whereas in arbitration, a settlement between the parties is done outside of court. 8. Comparison. Shows how the topic is similar to others in the class. For example, as with lawsuits or other court proceedings, the decision in an arbitration proceeding is legally binding on the parties. 9. Analogy. Explains and compares two dissimilar topics where the second is familiar to the audience. For example, an arbiter is like a referee. He or she listens to both sides and decides as to who is at fault without intervention of outside parties. 10. Examples. Represent other things because they have all the main qualities or characteristics that the thing they represent also have. For example, arbitration was used to settle the dispute between the labor and union management. Two people who are divorcing cannot agree on terms and allow a third party to come in to help them negotiate.
One of the first things to do when you write an expanded definition is to compose the formal sentence definition of the term by writing about. So here are several examples from expanded definition of words.
Number 1. Expanding by giving an example. Our time is marked by the definition of speed. Everyone is rushing to get there. Industry is always looking for new technologies that will help them speed up development. So the boss's constant cry to the workers is, "Speed it up." The car manufacturer boasts of the latest iteration, which is quicker than the previous model. Shoppers slam into each other around the counters. Everyone is in a rush to get something. People hurrying to school, store, or the office are rushing to complete important tasks. They gulp and swallow their food quickly. Angry fun seekers swarm into entertainment venues. The majority of these people are unable to sit still. They tap their feet or fingers impatiently while watching a movie. Yes, today's buzzword is speed. Number 2. Expanding by comparing and contrasting. Our day is described by the definition of speed. Sluggishness is no longer an option. Industry, which is always on the lookout for new technologies, demands speed. Sluggishness is frowned upon, particularly in industries where pay is based on production. Short-term courses in cooking, computerizing, sewing, swimming, learning a new language, and other subjects are appealing because of their speed. Long-term courses, on the other hand, are less desirable. Coffee does not need to be boiled is normally preferred. Yes, today's buzzword is speed. Number 3. Expanding by describing a process. Setting the gear level to first gear starts the process of speeding up in a car. This accelerates the vehicle from a standstill to a slow pace of under 10 kilometers per hour. You gradually change into the next gear while simultaneously pressing the accelerator pedal to reach a speed of 10 to 30 kilometers per hour. At speeds above 30 kilometers per hour, you can gain more speed by changing gears to the next higher stage. To do so, however, rising pressure on the accelerator must be applied simultaneously with a change to third or fourth gear. The only time you take your foot off the accelerator is to change gears, which allows you to step on the clutch pedal at the same time. You immediately step on the accelerator pedal after releasing the clutch pedal and accelerate. When you move the fourth, or in the case of some cars, the fifth gear, you can reach speeds of 80 kilometers per hour or more. Now, let us proceed to the following activities to check what you learned. The activity is called Box Concept. Direction. Interpret the words by filling up the box and taking him to the definition in each item. Are you now ready? Okay. So how was your score? I believe you get perfect. Congratulations everyone. You did a great job. Within this point means you have exerted your best efforts and hopefully you have truly learned the techniques of expanded definition of words. Let us enhance by carefully going through and answering another activities.
Modify true or false. Read the statements carefully. Write true if the statement expresses a correct and truthful thought. On the other hand, if the statement is erroneous, write the part or parts which makes the statement false, followed by a dash, then correct parts. The answer is true. Comparing similar. The answer is contrasting one to the similar topics differs. Number 3. Contrast or negation shows how the topics are alike to the others in the same class. Your time starts now. The answer is topics are alike with form. Number 4. Principles of operation discusses how topic in question functions, including any special materials or conditions required. Your time starts now. The answer is true. Number 5. History of relevant discusses the history of the term or its use and or controversies associated with it. Your time starts now. The answer is true. Number 6. Etymology explains the origin of the word itself. Your time starts now. The answer is true. Larger category. Number 7. Classification shows the topic fits into a smaller specific part. The time starts now. The answer is smaller specific parts similar to others. Number 8. Comparison shows how the topic is opposing in itself in the class. Your time starts now. The answer is opposing in itself component parts. Number 9. Description lists and defines the general whole. Your time starts now. The answer is general whole. Number 10. Cause and effect discusses how the situation came about and what effects it may have. Your time starts now. The answer is true.
Congratulations for a job well done. Continue to keep doing your best on showing mastery on how to expand definition. Let us discuss using the formal sentence definition. Expanding by giving an example, expanding by comparing and contrasting, and expanding by describing a process. You will use today's three techniques to expand the term pandemic.
Definition is one or more paragraphs that attempt to explain a complex term. Here are several examples. Expanding by giving an example. Expanding by comparing and contrasting. Expanding by describing a process. A definition can begin with a synonym, a brief phrase, a formal sentence, and techniques of definition are the following: etymology, history, cause and effect, description, principles of operation, classification, contrast or negation, comparison, and analogy.
So that would be all for today. Thank you everyone for listening our lesson. See you next meeting. Be safe always and God bless everyone.